Definitely will help someone like me competing against the mass monsters. A lot of these guys pushing the envelope, trying to be bigger. For me, it's bodybuilding about aesthetics and symmetry.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he was the guy that I looked up to for inspiration and as a perfect physique, along with a lot of young guys starting out.
How could I disagree? Took a dislike to what he said, but I respect everybody's game. Anything that's in favor of physique like mine, I have to agree with and support.
The way you pump iron reveals whether you are an advocate of the new age of bodybuilding or a guardian of the old wisdom. Both approaches have their pros and cons, and weighing them is something that is dependent on both highly subjective factors and objective circumstances. But one of the greatest bodybuilders in the world, Arnold Schwarzenegger, had some strong opinions on modern bodybuilding, and not everyone was happy to hear them. Let's dive in. Modern versus old school bodybuilding. The golden era of bodybuilding is widely believed to be from the 50s to the 70s. During these years, the greatest physiques to ever grace the sport were sculpted, and are still widely coveted today. During this time, bodybuilders had huge muscles, tiny waists, and perfect symmetry. Almost everyone in bodybuilding can agree that physiques from these eras were timeless. Despite knowledge supposedly evolving in regard to nutrition, supplements, and workouts, many people don't want to look like modern-day bodybuilders. In comparison, they are significantly bigger than those of the golden era, whilst looking more bloated and unhealthy than their predecessors. The reason for this is thought to be different steroids and different dosages used. Back then, steroids such as dianabol, decadurabolin, and primobolan were popular. These compounds would produce huge muscle gains without excessive androgenic effects. Thus, bodybuilders could remain looking relatively natural with smooth muscles whilst also keeping their hair intact. Nowadays, compounds such as trenbolone, anadrol, and HGH are more commonly used in combination with older steroids. Increased androgenic steroids like tren accelerate hair loss on the scalp, hence why bodybuilders today are often bald. Modern bodybuilders' traps and deltoids also blow up more today, creating a more freakish look. This is due to these muscles having a higher number of androgen receptors, thus are more susceptible to muscle hypertrophy via the use of androgenic steroids. The inclusion of HGH and insulin in cycles during the 80s had a negative effect on aesthetics. These two compounds helped in producing the first mass monsters, with Dorian Yates and Ronnie Coleman coming onto the scene. However, the downside to this extra mass from HGH and insulin was the enlargement of intestines and increased visceral fat, resulting in distended stomachs. In comparison, a typical IFBB bodybuilder today would be embarrassed to stand against people like Frank Zane, who would often highlight their tiny midsections by performing stomach vacuums when posing. Furthermore, bodybuilders today often take doses 7 times the dose as classic bodybuilders. Inevitably, taking more of any steroid will lead to more health complications, hence how bodybuilders such as Arnold are still alive now at 72 years of age and in relatively good health. In contrast, it's common for modern IFBB bodybuilders to die more prematurely.
Small waist, wide shoulders, symmetry and aesthetics is the most important part about bodybuilding. I think it's very important that things go back to there.
Arnold's comments on modern bodybuilding. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a bona fide global icon, a box office powerhouse, world-class bodybuilding athlete, and former governor of California. The Austrian oak has excelled in every industry in which he has participated, and is a true immigrant success story. Certainly when Arnold talks, the bodybuilding world will listen. The Austrian oak has gone on record stating that the bodybuilders of today have built physiques that are far too muscular and are less aesthetic. It's the opinion of a man from a different era, and that opinion is sparking some interesting responses from the bodybuilders of today. Arnold, 7-time Mr. Olympia champion and undoubtedly one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, slammed bodybuilding in some comments. He wasn't great for bodybuilding because he simply had an amazing physique, or even that he'd held the top titles in bodybuilding for so long. He pretty much owned an entire decade single-handedly. No, he was great for bodybuilding because he made it mainstream. When Arnold, who has done more for the world of bodybuilding than any other bodybuilder, speaks strongly about the future of bodybuilding, people pay attention. So what are his thoughts on modern bodybuilding?
That's what it is. It's an art form, and it started off like that, and let's try to keep it like that.
I kind of feel the same way. I feel like it should not just be about size. Weightiness with it, something that you want to look at and look someone like this guy.
Schwarzenegger was highly admired for his balanced proportions and aesthetic shape. With the increasing popularity of mass monsters in the open class, Schwarzenegger issued a stern warning and stressed that the sport is destroying athletes because they are taking it too far. The open class is at the forefront of the sport, and fans rush from all corners of the world to see the biggest and freakiest athletes compete on stage. Schwarzenegger, however, believes athletes have become too consumed with adding mass and less focused on their general health. The sport has seen a startling number of deaths as of late, which Schwarzenegger considers was less of an issue during his time in what was known as the golden era of bodybuilding.
I agree 100% with him. You know, it's not like it was in the 70s and 80s. It was, you know, all about symmetry, aesthetics.
I'm very happy to hear that statement. I'm considered to be one of the more aesthetic bodybuilders, and when it comes to size, I might not be that big.
He does have some, points, but at the same time, it has evolved. Now, we're going to have Formula One 20, 30 years ago. That was unheard of. You wouldn't do that.
We should definitely all consider. Personally, I think it has to be a blend between the two. I think they should be massive, but I do think they should be proportionate.
Kevin Levrone reaction. Kevin Levrone was one of the all-time greats in pro bodybuilding, winning more GPs than any other bodybuilder. He will go down in history as the uncrowned Mr. Olympia. Kevin Mark Levrone is an American IFBB legend who made his name in the world of bodybuilding by participating in the IFBB and Mr. Olympia championships. In May 1992, Levrone placed third in his plunge into the pro ranks at the Chicago Invitational, won by Porter Cottrell. A week later, at the Night of Champions, Levrone won and Cottrell carried away second place. A few months later, he was runner-up to Dorian Yates at the 1992 Mr. Olympia. Levrone would eventually flex his muscles in 25 American cities and 38 cities overseas spread among 12 countries. Of all his contests, perhaps the one that stands out most is one he didn't win. In 2002, a rejuvenated Levrone came out of seemingly nowhere to push champion Ronnie Coleman to the limit, as Coleman went for the fifth of his 8 Mr. O titles. Big Ronnie may have been the one to take the title home that night in Vegas, but many in the audience saw it going the other way.
Somebody has to take responsibility for it, and it starts with the judges. So you have shoulders like Hercules and then a tapered down V-tapered waist.
Not all bodybuilders were happy with Arnold's comments. Everyone has their opinion on what the perfect body is, and each individual will have to decide on what that means to them. And Kevin Levrone has something to say about Arnold's words.
Shoulder with a man with wide, broad shoulders. That's where it says. I think he absolutely is on track. It's an art form. It has to take.
Calum von Moger's reaction to Arnold's comments. Being dubbed as the second Arnold, Calum von Moger has the same awesome genetics and growth capabilities to be matched against the greats. Carrying not only a huge physique, but also a thirst for strength and progression, Calum's proving is a force to be reckoned with. Training with his brother at a young age and focusing on basic techniques with heavy weights, along with being influenced by the likes of Steve Reeves, the Arnold 2.0 rose up quickly as an aesthetic and classic bodybuilder in modern times. Calum von Moger is one of bodybuilding's industry superstars. Tall, handsome, and built, with all its accolades, 3-time Mr. Universe, acting roles, modeling contracts, magazine covers, endorsement contracts, and a robust social media following, most noted for playing Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Bigger. Standing out as a contender at a young age, Calum trained harder, grew bigger, and started to taste the feeling of success, winning his first competition in 2010 in Australia, and then took first place in the junior Mr. Universe. As a child, Calum also became inspired by watching Steve Reeves on TV in Hercules and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the hit documentary Pumping Iron, whichever was the main reason for his motivation.
I'm just not interested in the bellies going out past the chest, So, yeah, I have to agree with Arnold on that.
So what does Calum have to say about his hero's bold stance on his era of bodybuilding? Let's see.
I have to agree, today, I've got a lot of respect. The hardcore bodybuilding, they do a lot of hard work.
Rich Piana's reaction. Schwarzenegger, in his comments, said he is concerned that athletes, mostly in the men's open division, are playing Russian roulette with their lives. Was an American bodybuilder, businessman, and YouTuber. He won the National Physique Committee Mr. Teen California title in 1989, NPC Mr. California in 1998, and National Physique Committee competitions in 2003 and 2009. Piana was popular in the weightlifting community for his bodybuilding achievements, openness about steroid use in bodybuilding and its associated consequences, and over-the-top extroverted personality. He maintained a successful YouTube channel that featured motivational speaking, personal life stories, exercise montages, special guest appearances, and insights into his daily life. In his videos, he often spoke of the mentality and drive of the 5%, which he said is the percentage of people who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goals. Piana openly discussed using anabolic steroids and hormones, including trenbolone. Rich Piana also weighed in with his view on Arnold's statements.
presentation, posing. Now it's just about monster size. If they want to get the general public, they're gonna have to have more, aesthetic pleasing physiques. Obviously, I'm on the same page, man. Bodybuilding's got to go back to what it used to be. 70s, 80s, early 90s, that's what it was all about.
Rich Piana was a well-known name in bodybuilding, and the world watched when in 2017, at the age of 46, Piana collapsed and spent 2 weeks in a coma before passing. According to his autopsy report, both his heart and liver weighed twice the average amount for an adult male. It was also noted that he had mild atherosclerotic disease. In 2014, Piana asserted that he had experienced some side effects from his use of steroids, including hair loss, enlarged breasts, and signs of liver toxicity. In a 2016 video, Piana backed up his decision to use steroids, but advised viewers not to use them, stating, "If you have the choice to do steroids or stay natural, stay natural. There's no reason to do steroids. You're only hurting your body and hurting yourself." He then said that professional bodybuilders have no such choice since they cannot win at that level without using drugs. In the end, the autopsy report on his passing was ultimately inconclusive on the cause and manner of his demise due to the hospital's disposal of all toxicology specimens.
That's what I would rather see, and I think a lot of people agree that, it's gotten out of control. The men's physique, much respect, man. These guys got incredible physiques, and I can't stand it when I see bodybuilders talking shit.
Hani Rambod's reaction. With 19 Olympia wins to his credit, master coach Hani Rambod has ascended to legendary status within the fitness industry. Rambod spent his formative years geeking out over the muscle-building process, seeking out peer-reviewed studies about how arginine can boost growth hormone while his peers reached for comic books. That drive for knowledge led him to become one of the most revered trainers in the world.
I think that there is an evolution of bodybuilding. I think that bodybuilding has evolved. Do I think that there's some things that do need to happen? Absolutely.
Otherwise known as the Pro Creator, Rambod is the mastermind behind some of the top physiques in the world. Here are his opinions on Arnold's comments.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was amazing back in the day, but we all know that physique here probably wouldn't win a national show.
That's all for today's video. See you next time.